If you've ever tried to force yourself through 8 hours of focused work using pure willpower, you already know it doesn't really work. You burn out by hour 3 and spend the rest of the day pretending to be productive. That's not a personal failure. That's what happens when you try to override your brain instead of working with it. What I'm going to share with you today is a completely different approach, built around a psychological state that changes how those hours actually feel, not just how long you can force yourself to sit there. This is deeper than anything you've probably heard about focus before, the state most people never reach. In the 1970s, a psychologist named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi began studying something he noticed across painters, rock climbers, chess players, and surgeons, people from completely unrelated fields who, when asked to describe their best work, used almost identical language. They described losing track of time, losing self-consciousness, feeling like the work was happening through them rather than being forced by them. He called this state flow, and the research that followed over the next several decades identified the specific conditions that reliably produce it. What's important about flow for the question of 8-hour focus is this. People in a flow state do not experience the same fatigue and resistance that people forcing themselves through unfocused work experience. The hours pass with less subjective effort. This means the goal is not to build enough willpower to grind through 8 hours of resistance. The goal is to structure your work so that it produces flow, at which point the 8 hours stop requiring the kind of constant self-forcing that makes most people quit by hour 3. This reframes everything. If you're white-knuckling your way through a workday, the problem usually isn't insufficient discipline. It's that the conditions for flow aren't present, and no amount of willpower fully compensates for their absence over an extended period. The challenge skill balance. Csikszentmihalyi's core finding was that flow occurs in a very specific zone, where the challenge of the task and your skill level are closely matched, and both are relatively high. Too easy relative to your skill, and you get boredom. Too hard relative to your skill, and you get anxiety. Both boredom and anxiety pull you out of the present moment and into self-conscious awareness of how you're doing, which is the exact opposite of the absorbed state that sustains long focus. This has a direct practical implication. The tasks you choose to do during your longest focus blocks should be calibrated to sit right at the edge of your current ability, challenging enough to require your full attention, not so far beyond your skill that you're fighting confusion and frustration the entire time. Most people get this wrong in one of two directions. They fill their focus blocks with easy administrative tasks that produce boredom and make the hours crawl, or they attempt something so far beyond their current skill level that the work becomes an anxious, frustrating slog that burns through their motivation within an hour. The fix is deliberately structuring your work queue so that your deepest focus blocks are reserved for tasks matched to your current skill ceiling, hard enough to demand complete attention, familiar enough that you're not paralyzed by not knowing where to start. As your skill grows, the task needs to grow with it. This is part of why the same work can start out genuinely engaging and become boring over time. Your skill outgrew the challenge, and nobody adjusted the difficulty to compensate. Clear goals and immediate feedback. The second and third conditions Csikszentmihalyi identified work together. Flow requires knowing exactly what you're trying to accomplish in this specific work session, and it requires some form of feedback that tells you in real time whether you're getting closer to it or not. Most people sit down to work on the project without defining what a completed unit of that work actually looks like for this specific session. This vagueness is quietly exhausting because your brain has to spend cognitive resources continuously deciding what to do next, instead of directing all of that capacity into the work itself. Every moment spent deciding is a moment not spent producing, and the accumulation of thousands of these small decision points across a workday is a significant part of why unfocused work feels so much more draining than focused work, even when the total hours are the same. The fix is defining, before the block starts, exactly what done looks like for this session. A specific section written, a specific number of problems solved, a specific feature built and tested, and building in some form of visible progress marker, even a simple one, a word count, a checklist, a physical stack of completed pages. That gives you continuous feedback on whether you're moving forward. The brain responds to visible progress in a way that sustains motivation far longer than abstract effort toward a distant, undefined goal. Removing self-consciousness. One of the most underappreciated conditions for flow is the reduction of self-monitoring, the constant background process of evaluating how you're doing, how you look while doing it, whether you're doing it right, whether someone might judge the output. This self-monitoring is cognitively expensive, and it's almost always present when people are working in conditions where they feel watched, judged, or uncertain about whether their approach is correct. This is part of why working in a private, low-pressure environment often produces deeper focus than working in a highly visible or scrutinized one, even when the visible environment has more accountability built into it. It's also why perfectionism is such a powerful focus killer. The constant internal evaluation of whether the work is good enough pulls a significant portion of your attention away from the work itself and redirects it towards self-judgment. The practical fix here is separating the creation phase from the evaluation phase completely. During a deep focus block, the only job is production, getting the work out, however imperfect, without pausing to judge or refine it. Evaluation happens later, in a separate session, with a different mental posture entirely. Trying to create and judge simultaneously is one of the most reliable ways to prevent flow from ever developing, because the judging mind and the producing mind cannot both be fully engaged at once. The architecture of an 8-hour day. None of this means you're aiming for 8 consecutive hours of unbroken flow. That's not how the state naturally sustains itself, and trying to force it that long without any structure produces the same burnout as any other approach that ignores how the brain actually works. What it means is structuring your day around several distinct blocks, each one set up with the conditions flow requires: matched challenge, clear session goals, visible feedback, and reduced self-monitoring, with genuine recovery between them. The recovery between blocks matters as much as the blocks themselves. Csikszentmihalyi's research and the broader literature on sustained attention both point to the same pattern. People who alternate focused effort with genuine, complete breaks sustain higher quality output across a full day than people who try to push continuously. The break needs to be a real disengagement, movement, quiet, something unrelated to screens and unrelated to the work, not a different form of stimulation that keeps the nervous system activated. Across a full working day, this typically produces 3 to 5 solid blocks, each one capable of running 60 to 90 minutes at genuine depth once the conditions are right, separated by real recovery. That structure, done consistently, produces more high-quality output across 8 hours than most people manage in 12 hours of unstructured, self-forced effort. And it does so with dramatically less subjective exhaustion, because the work is being done in a state the brain finds sustainable, rather than a state it's constantly trying to escape. The deeper implication of all this is that focus is not a fixed trait you either have or don't have. It's a skill built through repeatedly creating the conditions that produce it, and like any skill, it improves with deliberate practice. The person who has spent months structuring their work around challenge-skill balance, clear session goals, and genuine recovery develops something close to a trained capacity for entering focus quickly. The conditions become familiar enough to the brain that it learns to associate them with the state itself. This is why some people seem to be able to sit down and immediately produce serious work, while others struggle for the first hour just to get started. It's rarely a difference in raw discipline. It's a difference in how much deliberate practice each person has put into structuring their work environment and their task selection around what actually produces sustained attention. That's a skill you can build starting with your very next work session, not a trait you either have or spend your life without. That's it for today. I really hope this actually helps you the next time you sit down to work. Even trying one piece of it should make a real difference. I'll see you in the next one.